Well, let's put an eye on Anthony now.
Hey, hi Anthony.
Hey, Anthony.
Hello.
So Anthony's another person. It's like he does so much that I just was like, what should I do for my professional introductory screen of Anthony? And I pulled pictures from his website. Here's his website. Anthony is an instructor, a weaver, a dyer, a spinner, a sort of everything fiber arts, and he's embarking on a whole new fiber arts journey. He was in Brooklyn here with me, but he's deserted us to go out into the countryside and have a whole new fiber adventure. And Anthony presented last Distaff Day, and so we wanted him back. I said, Anthony, we don't really care what you talk about, like it'll all be good. So I actually don't know what you're talking about, but it'll still be good. So I'm going to spotlight Anthony DiRenzo. There you are. Hi.
I also don't know what I'm going to talk about. No, I'm just kidding. I have the whole thing planned. Um, Hi, everybody. Um, Thank you, Gigi, for that introduction. And as Gigi mentioned, I had some big, exciting life changes last year. And I had to sort of navigate those and figure out how am I going to continue to foster joy in my life and continue to embrace this part of my life that just I love making things with my hands. I love working with wool. I love weaving and spinning. And I'm going to talk about how I have developed a plan to make something every day. And sort of in my 14 years as a classroom teacher, sort of nothing you do in a classroom you can do unless there's research backed up from what you're doing. And so I have sort of applied that to my life. And I figured out how to make something every day that is fully backed up by research. Similar to Elaine's presentation, I was also wondering what kind of assessment can I give folks at the end of this? But don't worry, I did not come up with anything.
Wait a
um,
second. In Montessori, you're not supposed to give tests, Anthony.
an assessment, Gigi. What kind of
Oh,
assessment? How can I let folks show me what they learned? And so today I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, the problem I had identified, two tools I had encountered in some of my reading, and how I applied those tools into my own studio practice, and then thinking about what's next for the future.
Amazing.
Um, so thank you, Gigi, for the introduction. Yes, fiber artist, educator. I spent last weekend teaching indigo dyeing and botanical printing to my friend's congregation of children, and it was so much fun and so exhausting, and I can't wait to do it again. I also identify as a future shepherd. Um, One of my goals for moving to the Hudson Valley was to establish a working fiber and dye farm that can also be used as a K through 12 education space. I think that I believe deeply in a more sustainable, more just future that is, slower than the pace we're living now. And I think that if we're going to have a more sustainable future, we need young people who are going to spend the most time in that future. We need their buy-in, their guidance, and also their leadership. And so I'd love to create a space for them to explore that. I'm also the vice president and newsletter editor for the New York Guild of Handweavers. You can check out our website. You can get our newsletter, even if you're not a member, and then you can join us and come to our meetings. We also offer our meetings always on Zoom, so you don't have to live in New York City to be a part of our guild. I'm on the communication committee at MAFA, so we also send out that great newsletter at the start of every month. I am most recently a member of the Woodstock Weavers, and I also work as a Montessori teacher trainer. I worked in a Montessori school for 10 years. I incorporated craft into my classroom every moment I could. I can talk way more about that, but that's not what I am here for today. So, the problem. I switched my job. I moved. I um, also moved my whole studio. And I have all these goals, but how am I going to accomplish them now? I have a lot more autonomy over my schedule. Um, when I was working at a school, I had to be at school at 8 and I was there until 4:30 and that was kind of it. And now I get to sort of design my days to make sure that I am getting everything I need to get done for my job that pays me, as well as my crafts that fulfill me. Um, and also scheduling, different teaching jobs that are also going to help with, covering the bills. And I found that even with these big life changes, and I thought that I was getting all of this freedom, where was all my time going? um, how was I still not having enough time to make everything I wanted to make? And so I sort of took stock of my approach to crafting. And so when I was living in Brooklyn and teaching middle school, so much of my day was loud and fast and at times sensorially overloading. And um, this gave me a moment to think, well, how do I plan a project? How do I get these wonderful pieces at the end? And I realized that I was really focused and driven by what the materials are. Working with wool is always exciting, but I also love working with reclaimed yarns. That picture of me on the previous slide, I'm actually at FabScrap in this picture. FabScrap is an organization in Brooklyn that does textile recycling, and they recruit thousands of volunteers a year to help them sort through all of these pre-consumer goods so that they can get to the appropriate recycling facility they need to, or into FabScrap's reuse shop. And so I love working with fab scrap materials because I have helped divert some of these materials from landfills and give them a wonderful new life. And I think my approach of letting the material guide the project really comes from my work in fab scrap, because you never know what's going to be in that shop in the back when you go in. And so I never know what I'm going to take home. And I can't go in there with the mindset, oh, I want specific yarn to make a scarf. You have to go in there and think, I'm going to look for yarns that appeal to me. And then I can sort of figure out, well, what are these going to be when I get home? And I also have that approach to the yarns that I spin. And I'll talk more about that on the next slide. And so that is how I realized that I was letting materials guide my plan. And that helped me decide how I was going to approach what I'm doing with my time in my life. And then also, I realized that I was experiencing hills and valleys of hyperfocus. And so there would be days, sometimes weeks, when I wouldn't work on my craft or my fiber arts because of the million reasons that there are to not. I was too tired. I was too busy. I had other stuff planned. And sometimes it just wasn't even speaking to me. But with that also came sort of intense periods of hyperfocus when I would only be focused on a singular project. And so I'm going to talk through one of my projects and explain sort of how that manifested. This is a blanket that I made in 2025 from an alpaca fleece that I purchased at Rhinebeck. And I brought it back. This is still when I was living in Brooklyn, and I washed it in my Brooklyn apartment. I carded it, I spun it. And then once I had all of the yarn spun, I thought, well, what am I going to make with this? And then I thought, well, I have enough for, a small throw blanket. Wouldn't it be great if I also dyed some of this yarn and also wove it into a blanket? So using weld and indigo, I created these shades of green, and then I designed this pattern and wove two panels that I sort of fastidiously measured to make sure that they would line up when I sewed them together. And I ended up with this pattern. And it was so exciting to work on this, but I realized I was hyper focusing on it when I was spinning the yarn, to the point that I spent almost an entire weekend just spinning the singles for this yarn. And then I ended up with a knee injury from overuse. And I realized that, like, I need to figure out, how am I going to work into my schedule times to work and times to not work, so that I can also take care of my body, so that I can make sure that I am able to craft for as long as possible as I am in my life. And so there are two pieces of research that I'm going to cover. The first comes from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is a pretty widely available book. I'm sure your library will have it. My library has it. And it is a great book all about how we set habits through our days. And so there is one aspect in this book called habit stacking, which is when you take an already established habit and you put your new habit that you want to establish right after it. And so it says, after I do this established habit, I will do this new habit. And I realized that if I want to make sure that I am sort of spreading out my spinning, that it should become a habit. I need to attach it to something else. And so I realized that I have to set myself a really joyful, productive, and clear morning routine. And in that morning routine, I need to work some time to spin in there. And so, as part of my morning routine and the habit stacking, I realized if I work time to spin in there, I'm going to be spinning every day so that I am making the progress in spinning and that I'm going to have the yarn to use and that I'm not going to, hurt myself because I am rushing to spin to get to the final part of a project. With that,
Right.
there's also a book, Craft Psychology by Dr. Anne Kirketerp. This is it's a book from Denmark. It is translated into English. I heard about this book from Kate, who's a member of the Woodstock Weavers. She presented about this at my very first meeting. And, there were just fireworks going off in my brain, thinking like, wow, I can't believe I found another fabulous fiber arts community to be a part of that they're going to share all these wonderful resources. And so I got this book. It is currently available through the DMC website, the Embroidery Floss website. They are able to get you a copy of the English translation of this book. This book is really written from a like scientific perspective. I think my training as a Montessori teacher and my training in adolescent development and brain science helped me sort of approach this book from a really excited point of view of like, wow, I really love learning about brain science and also thinking about all of the benefits of crafting. I sort of knew there were so many benefits of crafting. I could sort of feel them in my bones, but I couldn't quite articulate them in the way that this book has helped me. In this book, Dr. Kirketerp explains this idea of coupled activities. That when you are passively listening to something, so right now, this is not a conversation. I am speaking to you. Eventually, it'll become a conversation when you have questions, but you all are passively listening to me. Your brain is using about 50% of its attention to listen to me. I see many of you in these little Hollywood square boxes are also spinning, knitting, weaving, doing all sorts of things. A simple crafting activity requires about 50% of your activity. So this is what I consider, when I spin my bread and butter, my 2-ply warp yarn that I love to spin on my wheel, I'm not thinking too hard about what I'm doing. I'm relying a lot on muscle memory and also observing what's happening with, my drafting zone and adjusting. But it's not the sort of most intense thinking task that I'm doing. So if you're doing a crafting activity that you sort of know deep in your muscles, that's also going to require about 50% of your attention. So when you couple those activities together, when you listen to something and you're doing a craft activity that you know really well, you're actually able to do both of those 100% well because they're only using half of your attention at the same time. And so I am somebody who also lives with anxiety. And so when you tap into 50% of your attention to passive listening and 50% of your attention into your simple crafting, your default mode network is not engaged. Your default mode network is the part of your brain that is just sitting there scanning and wondering, oh gosh, how am I going to cook dinner if I don't have onions? Why did my friend send me that weird text? What is going on in this world? And so sometimes if I'm just spinning yarn and I am sitting in a silent room, I'm spinning, but my mind is also kind of going through all of the things that my brain has evolved to keep me safe and to constantly be scanning for danger. But my brain doesn't know that I am necessarily sitting in my safe house and working on my lovely craft and all my bills are paid and my fridge has food and I have people in my life who love and support me because my brain is just always going to be looking for those dangers. And so that's what your default mode network does. So when you're engaged with listening to something and crafting something, you move into your, CEN, cerebral something network. It's going to come to me. So knowing what I know from Atomic Habits as well as craft psychology, I thought, well, how can I use this to change my practice and to influence what I'm doing? And so I thought, well, what do I want in my day? I do want daily spinning progress. I want to make sure that I have wonderful yarns that I have spun to choose from when it comes time to work on a project. I also thought, gosh, I really wish I just read more. And I also kind of want to break from the anxiety in my brain that's just like constantly telling me these dangers that aren't really necessarily dangerous to me in this moment. And so here I have a picture of the desk I'm sitting at right now. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that are happening in this setup. So this is habits are stacked, my activities are paired, and a little bit of Montessori to make it happen. So part of my morning routine is that I sort of check my emails while I am enjoying the last of my coffee or some breakfast. I'm checking my personal email, my Montessori email, my Malfi email, my New York Guild email. Um, I have to work that into my schedule because I would never check emails if that weren't part of my habit. Um, emails kind of drive me crazy, but I understand that they are a necessity. So I build time for that. And then when I'm done, I literally just turn my chair 90 degrees. And right here is my spinning wheel. And it's already set up. It's got a project on it. I took this project today so you can see the Corriedale. I have a better picture of that in a future slide. And that is when I'm either finishing watching the late night show monologues and I might turn on a podcast or I might turn on a book so that I am now, without a whole lot of effort, again, just turning 90 degrees, my body, I am working on my spinning and then listening to a book. I'll be honest, sometimes that book is an episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Sometimes it's a book, depending on sort of where I am in my mood. But the Montessori parts of this I wanted to point out are this idea of a prepared environment. I have literally set myself up for success by making sure that after I'm done with emails and breakfast, I don't need to go get out my spinning wheel. I don't need to move furniture. I don't need to go set something up or clear something off. It's right there ready to go because it's part of my daily routine. Posted routines. If you look at the bottom of my computer screen, there is a printout of a little schedule, and that sort of tells me everything I'm going to do in the morning, everything I'm going to do each day, so that I can make sure that I am meeting all of my responsibilities to like my job that pays me money and my craft practice that I am looking to expand on, as well as finding time to continue to like research and grow that practice as I learn to build and grow this program that I'm working towards. So I have my posted routines there as a reminder. And then also a work plan on the bulletin board above my desk because I love knitting and I love spinning and I love weaving and I love dyeing. It's easy to sort of like lose track of one of those. And so I keep little checklists of each of my ongoing projects so that they're sort of right there. I'm looking at them every day. I'm reminded of them every day, and I can see what is the small step that I have to accomplish next in that project. So all of that is there to set me up for a day that is successful in terms of getting everything done, staying connected to people, finding time to spin yarn, and also making sure that I'm making progress on the things that really matter to me. And with that, I want to share with you what's on my wheel right now. This is a Corriedale fleece that I bought at Rhinebeck this year. This is from the youth fleece sale. So one of the 4-H kids raised this sheep and sheared it, and I picked it up, and I have scoured it. Also at Rhinebeck last year, I took a class on combing with Kimberly Radcliffe, who you might know as the natural spinner. And so I've been working on my combing skills, and I have the scars on my fingers to prove it. And then I dizzed the wool off the combs into top, and I have been spinning the singles so that I can make a 2-ply warp yarn. The photo on the right with the penny, that's my ply back sample so that I can check. That's what the eventual warp yarns will look like. And just a little shout out that you can follow me on Instagram at Heddle and Canal, and my website is there as well. But that is how I have used sort of research to feel like I am starting my days off great and staying connected to my craft.
Wow, Anthony, like that's exactly what I needed for 2026, where I was exactly like you and I was making a real shift in my life and what I do. And you just mapped it all out for me. Thank you. That is fantastic. I turned 61 last year, And it's kind of like that age where you go, you turn 60, you go, oh my goodness, I'm 60. But you turn 61, it's like, okay, I'm 61. I need to get very intentional about my days. So that's exactly what you've been doing. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. And that Corriedale looks like glistening heavenly spun clouds or something.
It's
It,
beautiful.
it is. I mean, I fully credit Kimberly Radcliffe with sort of the preparation of this top, but it is so lovely to spin that like I don't know, it's just like the extra steps that I've gone through to get to this point. I feel so connected to this project, and it just gives me even more motivation for me to sort of get my own flock and then think about even one step back farther in the process.
So yeah, that's one thing I was going to mention is one of your things is to get your own flock. Like you left New York City and went, I am going to somehow get my own flock, which is so many spinners' dream. You're
Mm.
living the dream, right?
I hope next year I'm at St. Distaff Day telling you all about my first little animals.
And people, I should have mentioned this at the start, but you were recently featured on Textiles and Tea, Handweavers Guild of America's Textiles and Tea, and that was I think December 24th or something like that.
December 30th.
December 30th. And all of the HGA Textiles and Tea episodes, they're free and open to the public. They're put onto the HGA Facebook page and YouTube page. But if you just put in Anthony DiRenzo Textiles and Tea, that episode will come up. It's available to watch forever and ever. So it's great. I watched it.
It will also be linked in the next New York Guild newsletter that goes out on the 15th.
Oh,
You
perfect.
get the New York Guild newsletter, you can find it in there as well.
Yeah, so go to nyhandweavers.org. I'll put it in the chat and sign up for our email. That's my guild too. Or join because we are a hybrid guild. We do everything on Zoom and in person. And you can, just like New York City, we welcome people from all over the world. So it's $25 for the whole year. You get what, seven speakers for that? And
Mhm.
so it works out to like $3.90 a speaker. And you get the holiday party on Zoom or in person. It's just really worth it.
And then this May, I am the speaker for New York Guild, where I'll be talking about my trip to Oaxaca and my process of natural dyeing and what I learned there, and what I shared with my students and what I shared with everybody who will listen.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So you're on a roll, Anthony. I can't. What sheep are you thinking of getting? Oh, look at the hearts just flying. Um, what sheep are you thinking of? Like just getting any sheep or a specific breed or what?
Oh gosh, I think about this all the time. It's I don't know yet. I'm open to suggestions. I know that sort of those like medium wools seem to thrive in our temperate New York wet damp climate. So I'm imagining somewhere in that family.
Wow.
I'd say get one of each.